Man vs. 50 with author Richard Maloof. Real advice and real stories on topics, regardless of age, and important to the modern man. Now, here's Richard.
And it was about that. Like, I could not process the thought of moving on after everything I had done, and I think it hurt a lot of my relationships in the future. I was deathly afraid to get close to someone again because someone had given me their all and I had destroyed it. And then I was afraid to give someone my all because I never wanted to feel that way.
Yeah.
When someone has that much control over you, So I think for me, that's probably where I would go when thinking about that. Do I have a million more? Probably.
Yeah.
And we'll get into more of those as time goes on, intentionally or unintentionally, depending on what we're talking about. But, looking back on it, I think that it truly helped me to get a better understanding of what I need to do, because part of this of who am I, and we watched this video about, focus on who basically aren't you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do that. Like, that's a very difficult thing to focus on who I'm not. I'm trying to understand that a little better because I got to build by this time. I'm hoping I have, and this, I wanted to get into this with you a little bit about self-awareness, but I'm hoping to always continuously grow and improve. And I think if I stop figuring out who I am, my strengths, my weaknesses, my emotions, if I stop that, then I'm going to stop growing, I think.
Right.
I don't know what your thoughts on.
Well, as soon as you stop, you become stagnant. And all of you still have your hopes and dreams and desires. Well, those become far distant if you're not continually trying to better yourself. One of the things that I was told early, and I was glad, was to surround yourself with like-minded people. Give yourself that advantage, because if you're around other quitters, people that are just fine where they are, they're stagnant, they don't really have any desires, well, you're going to become that way. You're going, that's part of that environment that you're just going to adapt to, or that's the fork in the road.
Right.
There's the regret. Which way are you going to go? Well, if it's easy and you don't feel like working, that's where you're going to end up. Well, I hope that you're happy there.
Right.
I wouldn't be, which is why I think you and I both, it's a continual, let's just keep clawing at it.
Right.
Surrounding myself with people that are eager to learn, that question things, that want to do something all the time, and not so much physically, but just they want to grow, they want to keep expanding. I think that's critical.
Right.
But
no, I think that, and you're so right. I know that, again, another one of my journeys, and I won't get into it today, but came a point where I had to make a very, very difficult decision of moving back to my hometown or doing something different. And we'll tell that story one day. But to your point, I could not go back because I felt, and this is not a negative thing, but I felt like I was going to get put in a place where I'd be surrounded and held down because I'd already tasted what it was like on the outside of a small town.
Right.
And I felt like I couldn't go back to be surrounded by, I don't know how to say this in a not negative way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I didn't want to go back to people who never, it was so scary at 26 years old to drive out of Peoria to Dallas at 26 years old. Yeah, that's a big change in your
Yeah.
life, right? And I was leaving my grandparents, my brother and sister, my mom, my nieces, you know, and going on this journey by myself. I had no family down in Dallas. I had nobody, but I had the courage to do it because I wanted more in my life. And so, and I have people who stay in Peoria. My brother, my friend Brian, has been extremely successful.
Yep.
Fantastic. You know, that's, again, that was their journey, right? And it just wasn't mine. And I never believed it was mine. So if I went back, I was going to be surrounded by people who figured it out. And then maybe some people who didn't, but we're just in this okay with being okay.
Yeah.
And I am so not okay with just being okay. I don't like status quo. And that's not always a great thing, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. So I wanted to continue to self-improve. And again, a big thing of this topic, and as we continue to dive through this with other shows, is that regret, hindsight, fork in the road, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Once you understand why it happened.
Yeah.
So if you never mature enough to get to the place where you can understand why it happened, because that's the journey. This is the life lesson, you know, this is why we are who we are, right? If you never get to that place, if you have to get to the place of understanding why certain things in your life happen,
Right.
you know? And that's the beauty of the journey. You know, that's the ultimate success of the journey. But this topic has got me thinking so much about a lot of things, and everything is about, life is not easy, right? And if you think you're the only one that has issues or problems, you're not.
Yeah, right.
You know? So I think it's even everything the Bible is about how to live your life, right? I mean, think about it. It's like a life map.
Yeah.
And I just think that people need to understand that everyone has this ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. But until you confidently can just sit and take a look, and this hasn't been easy for me, but until I humbled myself, I couldn't really understand why a lot of this stuff. Why, you know, people always say, why do good things happen to this person and bad things happen to this? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. But I do know I've had my share of bad things. You've probably had some bad things that you're like, why is this happening to me? When your back is messed up and you're like, why me? You know? And so, but at those moments, you have to take a step back and be so thankful for all the blessings.
That's right.
In your life.
Well, and that's where God gives us the challenges. He puts those in front of us to grow closer to Him. It's not so we can, and that's where a lot of people get lost, is that they focus on the bad thing that's happening. Well, there's a reason that we face those challenges, and that's so that our faith gets stronger, our relationship with God grows, so that we can be closer. And so many times, you know, that song, Jesus, Take the Wheel. I'm driving, I'm hanging on to that wheel so hard, so reluctant to let it go, where I finally hit that, not rock bottom, but I run into that super deep, hard challenge, and I finally realize, oh, sorry, here you go, here's the wheel, I'll let you drive.
Right.
And that communication, that prayer helps me get through whatever that is. It doesn't mean that it's just because you're a Christian, life is easy. Oh, it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that because you're not a Christian, life is hard. No, I mean, how many times have we seen folks that are proudly proclaim, I'm not a Christian, I don't go to church, but they have all of the things that maybe people would say, those are things that I want. Well, it doesn't mean, it's not a one for one, I guess is what I'm saying. Just I go to church, oh, life is easy. I don't, it's hard. It's all about our relationship with God. So,
Right. No, I agree. And, I think, we talked about like our faith will be part of this show. Like, and we're not Bible, we're
Bible thumpers.
pumpers, whatever they call them. And it's just, but it is part of the show because a lot of things have gone on in each other's lives that we've looked to God and, whatever that looks, when you're faced with hardship and you close your eyes and talk to whoever that is kind of what we're talking about, right? So I think it's you never know the pain and suffering that's going on in someone's life, and your point about there are so many people who have let the overwhelming weight of regret take their own life or do whatever because it's ruined marriages, it's ruined jobs, it's ruined because it is overwhelming. And I'm not saying those people are bad at all. That's not the point of this. What I'm saying is either they need support to talk to someone, listen to something like what we're talking about to know that they're not alone. These people, I mean, I don't think I've come to a place where I ever thought about taking my life or anything like that.
No.
But I tell you what, there's been some days and weeks I didn't want to get out of bed.
Yeah. Just throw the towel in.
Yeah. And so, but somehow God or whoever it is finds a way and creates a new path for me. And I always continued to believe. And even when I was at my worst and the regret and the guilt and the shame was overwhelming, I still somehow believed I was going to figure it out. Why, I don't know, but I just kept believing, So yeah, it's these journeys that we've both been through and that we talk about are, I think, it's a lot. It's deep stuff and sometimes uncomfortable, but we trust each other enough to talk about this, and I'm okay. I was talking to Michelle and she's like, I'm sure a lot of things you guys talk about are not going to be comfortable, and I don't know if Lori feels that way, and maybe not, but she understands why we're doing this and why we want to get this out to people. And, I think, whatever reason people will tune in or whatever, if someone can listen to this and understand that no matter what journey, what path you picked, there are similar things that happen in each other's life that we will share stories like, oh my gosh, that same thing happened to me, or I can relate, so yes, so this might be a good place to stop.
Okay.
You wanted to end it with something? You wanted to
So one.
I want to talk to you. I'll ask you first.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
All right.
Okay. So we decided like we're going to end every show with just like something that stood out to you this week, like something that happened or something you thought about that stood out to you this week.
Mine was just with work. I've just recently taken a new job. I've been there for a few months, and I was invited to go to a dinner with my boss, his boss's boss. So it was all the folks that I hadn't really had a chance to get to meet and know and interact with, certainly through email, but that's not really meeting anyone. So I got to go and have dinner and with this group and some other folks that are at the same level of my boss, just in other markets. And so it was a comfortable uh, encounter, I guess is the best way to put it. We just had, it's almost like we'd all known each other for a really long time. So the top person that was there started talking to me and brought me right into the conversation, and we all chit-chatted about all kinds of stuff. And that's the culture that I was looking for. Well, it was for me, what stood out to me this week, I found the culture. I saw it in action, and it really helped me feel good about the choice I made to go to this company. So
That's good.
you know, it's so, I'm so relaxed.
Yeah.
I feel so good now.
No, that's good. And I know, again, we talk about like regret or choices, because your last job you went to and you were excited and then
Yeah.
realized as you got in, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not meant to be. And, I remember you and I talking about that, and, it was a placeholder,
It was.
and
It got me here.
it got you here.
Yeah.
So you needed that job as a placeholder to get you to this job, which worked out fantastic.
And I'll tell you, I regretted taking that job at the time. I regretted it. I thought this was the worst decision I've ever made, but it led me here.
Right.
And if I had not taken that job, there's been an unraveling at that prior company. And so I would have been subjected to quite a bit of difficulty, and who knows where I would have ended up.
Right.
Where, like you said, it was a placeholder. At the time, I didn't understand it, but I kind of, bared through it. And here I am.
Right.
So,
But the good thing is you didn't let it jade you or
Right.
get you, or you still had the courage to realize you were unhappy and do something about it. And I think there are a lot of people very unhappy who don't do anything about it because they're just afraid of change or just afraid. So, and we'll talk about more about that stuff in other shows. So
how about for you?
yes. So I heard this story, and I hope I don't botch it, but
You'll do great, I'm sure.
yeah. But you said something that it is actually, see, God's with us now. So actually perfect for this story.
Okay.
So I was listening to this guy, and he said, if I put a football in my hand, it's worth $11. But if you take that football and put it in Tom Brady's hands, it's worth $50 million. If I have a basketball, it's worth like $20. You put that basketball in Michael Jordan's hands, it's worth $1 billion.
Right.
If I have 2 nails in my hand, I might be able to nail a piece of wood to the wall. But if you put 2 nails in the hands of Jesus, he saves the world.
Wow.
So why are we trying to not put our things in the hands of the person who can save the world? And so when you really think about it, it got me. I sat there and was like,
Yeah.
And, you think of that visual, 2 nails in my hand means nothing. 2 nails in the hands of Jesus means he saved the world.
Right.
And if I just said that to you, to anybody, they might not be able to like comprehend it, but I love the sports analogy.
Yeah.
Because we've all held a football.
Right.
And I didn't get paid $50 million to do it. And
Actually, it cost me money.
and basketball, and we didn't. But just the thought of you put something I can hold in my hands into somebody else's hands and how much it's worth, and how we could, we put our problems in the hands of Jesus or God, and
Right.
how different that is. So that really touched me this week, and I've been thinking about it nonstop. But again, as we talk about our journeys, we talk about all these things in life that we're going through and been through, and hopefully someone can say, you know what? I remember when I was Chris, and I took that job and I couldn't stand it, or when I wanted to move to an island and I didn't. But you know what? I have 2 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife. And sometimes, and again, it kind of goes back to, as you get older, all these things we heard as kids make no sense. But when it's like, take a step back and smell the roses,
Right.
it's kind of the same thing. Like,
Yep.
you have a ton of blessings in your life.
Amen.
Just take a step back and look around
Right.
and see what they are, and understand how you got here.
Yeah.
And that's part of this thing that we're doing. And, you know, I know man versus 50, we kind of center around an age, but really it's not. It is being a man and going through life and understanding that even though we put on a strong face and we try to be tough and resilient, sometimes it's just not,
Yeah.
you know? So again, I appreciate it.
Got it.
And this is a good place to stop. And then next week we'll pick it back up.
Okay.
We'll continue with a lot of these topics, because it's just, again, as we get to know each other on a different level and you start to get more, you know, transparent and comfortable, just like, you know, understanding, because again, you know a lot about my life, and I know a lot of people want to hear, you know, some of the struggles you've been through in marriage, and when you hit places in your marriage that, you know, kind of were like forks in the road, what you did and how you made those decisions, and how you guys continue to build on that to make it successful and happy, and all the things that you do, because you're in the percentile of people who don't usually make it.
Right.
And so, but I think the people love to hear about that, and we'll talk more about that too.
Okay.
So, all right. I
Cool.
appreciate it, man.
Right on.
Thanks.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Man vs. 50 with author Richard Malouf. Don't forget to subscribe